TKBB, KNAKS, Adil Advisory, and Salihan. Let me take you through the agenda of the session. The first 15 minutes are allocated for the welcoming remarks. Then our brother Amar Mustafa Ansari, the Secretary General of AAOIFI, will start presenting the remaining 3 exposure drafts. And these are Shari'ah Supervisory Board Functions and Operations, Shari'ah Supervisory Board Review and Report, and applications of Shari'ah Governance principles to Islamic finance subsidiaries or associates. Now I would like to invite Dr. Salihan Abang, who is the founder and managing partner in Salihan Group Malaysia, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Dr. Salihan?
I'm not sure if he's around. Maybe if you can move to the others, I would check if he's...
He raised his hand. Okay.
Okay.
Let me see. So as an attendee, okay, allow. Dr. Salihan, can you hear me?
You should promote him to panelist, and he will have to accept it to become a panelist.
Yes. Done.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Omar Ansari, Secretary General of AAOIFI, esteemed partners of the event, valued participants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and Ramadan Kareem to all. We begin by expressing our profound gratitude to Allah, seeking His blessing and peace upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is with a great honor and responsibility that we at Salihin Shari'ah Advisory and Salihin Academy engage as a partners with AAOIFI in hosting this very significant public hearing. A bit of introduction about Salihin. Salihin is a pioneering brand synonymous with integrity and innovation in Islamic financial advisory landscape. Our commitment to upholding the principle of Sharia in business and finance has cemented our reputation as a trusted leader in this industry. The establishment of Salihin Academy further exemplifies our dedication to nurturing expertise and advancing knowledge in Islamic finance, ensuring a legacy of skilled professionals who are well-versed in Sharia compliant practices. The essence of today's public hearing is to forge a collaborative platform where stakeholders from Islamic financial sector can actively engage, offering questions, recommendations, comments, and suggestions. This valuable contribution will be meticulously considered by the relevant working group and esteemed board of AAOIFI. Our agenda focuses on the critical examination of exposure draft concerning number 1, Shari'ah Supervisory Board Review and Report. Second, application of Shari'ah Governance Principle of Islamic finance subsidiaries and associates. This exposure draft play a crucial role in Shari'ah governance within Islamic financial institution, shaping practice related to review and reporting of Shari'ah Supervisory Board, as well as applying governance principle to subsidiaries and associates in Islamic finance. We would like to extend our congratulations to AAOIFI for undertaking such a noble initiative and demonstrating commitment to the development of the Islamic finance industry. We hope and we always pray that this public hearing will benefit the Islamic finance industry and contribute to the ensuring consistency, standardization, and harmonization in practices. In closing, we seek Allah guidance and success in our endeavors. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you so much.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dr. Salihan, thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Dr. Mufti Yusuf Sultan, who is the founder and the CEO of Adil Advisory and the co-founder of IFA Consultancy in Malaysia, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Dr. Mufti Yusuf.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Honorable Mr. Secretary General Mustafa Ansari, my fellow colleagues, Dr. Salihin Abang, Professor Dr. Ahsan Lasasna, and also all the participants, Ms. Zahra Jassim, yourself. It's a true honor for us to collaborate with AAOIFI, the top recognized Islamic finance setting body globally, on this public hearing and on the very two important governance standards, exposure drafts. One is on Shari'ah Supervisory Board Review and Report, the other one on application of Shari'ah Governance principles to Islamic finance subsidiaries and associates. On this holy month of Ramadan, and particularly when we are approaching the last 10 days of Ramadan, this is a very relevant and important question for us, how Sharia compliant we are in all our activities on personal life, commercial life, and particularly in the Islamic finance industry. And the question boils down on the topic of the extent and efficiency of Sharia governance, the effectiveness of Sharia governance. While AAOIFI has been always from day one emphasizing, contributing to the global Islamic finance industry on Sharia governance, this new approach, or rather updated approach to update and issue more comprehensive Sharia governance standards or governance standards related to Sharia governance is definitely something very, very praiseworthy, which I cannot really express. Adil Advisory is a Malaysia-based global Sharia advisory company. We are a small company, but at the same time, we focus more on Islamic fintech and other Islamic financial segments. At Adil Advisory, we try to basically bring in between the value proposition of Sharia compliance, at the same time efficiency, and also affordability. We believe Sharia compliance is something that is not only for Islamic finance industry, but for every Muslim owner, entrepreneur, every Muslim businessman, and in fact, anyone who wants to achieve sustainability or the objectives of Sharia or something doing good for the society and environment. We hope and appreciate that the contributions made by AAOIFI to the Islamic finance industry will continue, inshallah, for the harmonization, but also to being more and more Sharia-based value proposition to industry. We make dua that the public hearing today is successful, and also all other public hearings being conducted, particularly on this month of Holy Ramadan as well. We make dua, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the efforts by AAOIFI and all the industry participants, including our fellow colleagues, the collaborators for the public hearing today. Jazakumullah khairan for making us a collaborative partner today. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Mufti Yusuf. For my welcoming remarks, I'll just mention a few points. As I said yesterday, these 6 exposure drafts were issued in December 2023, and this is the 5th public hearing to be held for the exposure drafts. We held one in January, the second was in February, and 2 in March. So this is the 5th one, and inshallah, we can complete the 3 remaining exposure draft. After it, we will hold the 6th public hearing, and it will be in Arabic language. We hope that during this year, we will continue, or we will conclude the due process, and we will issue the final standards. In terms of how we will manage this session, we have 1.5 hours, and you are welcome to post your questions in the Q&A tab. If after the session, you still have more questions or feedback or comments, please feel free to share with us on governance@aaoifi.com. This is it from my side. Now I would like to invite our brother Umar Mustafa Ansari, the Secretary General of AAOIFI, to start the session.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. My dear friends and colleagues, particularly Dr. Salihin, Dr. Ahsan, and Dr. Yusuf Sultan, and all participants today, and my team, all of you are all of you are actually commendable. This is, one of the tasks in the holy month of Ramadan, inshallah, that will be added to all of our ajr, inshallah, that we took out time, and we all are joining from different time zones. I know that our brothers from Malaysia and Indonesia might have done iftar already, while others are waiting for it. And I know that I can see our respected Dr. Kabir Hassan joining from US. And I know that there are some other regular members also joining, normally from the United States. So you can see that there are people who are maybe waiting for starting their suhoor right now, maybe. So welcome all of you, and many thanks from the bottom of my heart on my personal behalf and on behalf of AAOIFI for supporting this whole initiative, particularly to our partners. As the time is limited, and as Sister Zahra has mentioned, that what is happening is that this is such an interesting subject that and people are so much enthusiastic about it, that in each public hearing we are getting as many questions that it is impacting the progress of discussion, and discussion gets slowed down, and not the discussion, I would say the progress on the completion of the public hearing of the standard slows down. Discussion goes on and on. So now Sister Zahra is saying that we have to complete 3 standards today, which I believe is a huge challenge. And in last 2 public hearings during Ramadan, last 2 days, I have been saying that every time I feel that people might be sleeping, but in the end, it comes out that everybody, alhamdulillah, is very well awake and very much having a very good eye and insight into the topic and contributing greatly. So I hope that inshallah today again we will be continuing with the same zeal and enthusiasm as we have been doing it, particularly yesterday, with the only one request that try to keep very much focused to the subject of these exposure drafts rather than going to the questions or discussions which are not a subject of these exposure drafts, because the time is limited. And again, we will try to complete it today. But again, our first priority is to get it maximum discussed and get the maximum comments. And even if it takes one more public hearing, I may not mind, although my team might mind it, because it might be getting too much, longer and longer process. But alhamdulillah, thank you everybody very much for your kind, input till now, and looking forward for that for today as well. Without further ado, I'll just switch my screen for the full screen, and let's move ahead with the presentation of the today's first exposure draft of the governance standard. As I discussed yesterday, the new exposure drafts out of these 6, 3 are on the subject of Shari'ah Supervisory Board. The first one that we discussed yesterday was on Shari'ah Supervisory Board appointment and composition. Today we are going to discuss on functions and operations and review and report of the Shari'ah Supervisory Board, inshallah. As most of the core principles have been discussed already, and some of the more, I would say, controversial, or maybe not necessarily controversial is not the right word, I believe. The more the points that had more divided opinion or more diversified opinion with regard to, rotation, with regard to involvement of expert members, etc. Most of them have already gone through. So maybe this time we might be having less, a need for less discussion. But again, we are still looking for very positive and valuable comments to add value and improve the standard. Okay, now coming to the preface and introduction, we have already discussed most of the aspects. Very quickly, I'll brief that this standard, along with the other 2 standards, will be replacing 2 of the existing AAOIFI standards, that is governance standard number 1 and 2. This one is primarily taking over the governance standard 1, while the independence-related governance standard number 5 will continue for the time being. Now, just with regard to as it is the new standard, so a lot of concepts here are comparatively new. Although new means that they are new to the AAOIFI governance standards, although they are in some of the regulations already available, or rather in the practices, good practices of the Islamic financial institutions, they are there. So let's start with the objective. The objective of this standard includes the following: empowering the Shari'ah Supervisory Board of an IFI to effectively carry out its mandate in line with the requirements of relevant AAOIFI governance standards, enabling the SSB to achieve its objectives in an effective and efficient manner. So effectively carry out the mandate as per governance standards and enabling to achieve the objectives in effective and efficient manner. Promoting consistency and uniformity in SSB operations and functions across various types of institutions, regardless of their geographical location or size, and promoting and maintaining independence and objectivity in SSB's functions and operations, and establishing responsibilities and accountability of SSB members in carrying out their respective functions. To some extent, this responsibilities and accountability part is a bit new. This applies to all Islamic financial institutions, including Windows, except for RSAs. They can have their own view with regard to what to be adopted, what are the institutions who have to adopt it. This may also apply to the relevant. We are saying that it shall apply to the WAF and other social finance and other type of institutions or any other SSBs which are established for sukuk, etc., as relevant. Whatever is relevant in in addition to whatever is written in those respective AAOIFI governance standards, the requirements of this standard will also apply. In relationship with the other standard, we are establishing its linkage with the other standards of the governance standards of AAOIFI, which are being issued together or have been issued already. There was one comment yesterday, which was from, if I remember correctly, from Mufti Abdullah Masoom from Bangladesh. He commented that we should create a link of this standard with the fatwa standard, that is Sharia standard number 29 on stipulation and ethics of fatwa for within institutional framework. I think that we have some individual references in this standard related to that. And yesterday I mentioned that it was related to appointment and composition, and here it is more relevant. Secondly, we have already issued another exposure draft of a very comprehensive standard on Sharia decision-making process. And I think that we should be creating a cross-reference here based on Brother Abdullah Masoom's comment that we should have a cross-reference here with the Sharia decision-making standard as well as with the Sharia standard on establishment of fatwa. Sister Zahra and Sister Marjan, I believe if you can kindly make a note of it, please, it will be good.
Inshallah.
Coming to the definitions, a fatwa is a definition. Yesterday, we received a comment on the definition of fatwa. This definition, I think, is coming from our earlier governance standard on syndicated financing, but I think we need to check what was the first standard that has used it. Now, this ED has been finalized, so the number of governance standard has to be updated here, but the definition has been finalized, I believe, so we just need to recheck it with the final version of the definition. Sister, if you can make a note of it. There was a comment from Brother Mufti Abdullah Masoom yesterday on the definition of fatwa also, that we should be considering and taking it to the working group. Independence is an attitude of mind which does not allow the viewpoints and conclusions of its possessor to become reliant on or subordinate to influences and pressures of conflicting interests. It is also achieved through organizational status in an objective way. Islamic financial institution definition we discussed earlier many times. This is coming from the other standards. Maqasid al-Sharia definition is coming from our Sharia decision-making process standard, and this is where we are trying to emphasize in the Sharia governance framework that Sharia principles and rules that are applied in determining permissibility, impermissibility, and the right way of action in different situations should also take into account the maqasid as relevant. And while at times the fatwa might be primarily based on the core principles of fiqh, but at times the higher objectives of Sharia, that is maqasid, become more important, and particularly in the institutional framework, and more importantly at the level of the central Sharia boards, they become more and more important. Maqasid al-Sharia definition is coming, I think it is from Sheikh Al-Ashur's original definition, very slightly improved for the purpose of this standard, if I remember correctly. Are the higher objectives of Sharia Islamic law, which are meant to protect and safeguard human beings through obedience to Allah Almighty as the creator and in line with Sharia principles and rules, achieved through the preservation of their deen, life, intellect, progeny, and wealth, and their prioritization of necessities followed by needs, followed by embellishments and complementary matters. While this is primarily discussed in the Sharia decision-making standard, but I would like to emphasize on two very important things here. Number one is that we have added here the condition of that the maqasid have to remain in line with Sharia principles and rules. Means that we have seen that there has been a tendency at times of certain scholars, again, they are very well respected and we respect their views, but at times established principle is compromised because of a higher maqsad. With regard to the AAOIFI Sharia standards, which are the main part of the Sharia principles and rules because of the definition of Sharia principles and rules that we apply, we believe that because those Sharia standards also consider maqasid wherever necessary. So from that purpose, we should not be allowing in this definition a bypass of Sharia principles and rules in name of maqasid. So rather, we should take a choice within the permissible options within Sharia, whichever is closer to maqasid, but we should not and never be using a maqsad to create an excuse against Sharia principles and rules. I do not want to go in detail of this subject further, but this is a very important issue, and this definition was reviewed in detail by the Sharia Committee of the Sharia Board, and certain improvements like this were made by the Sharia Committee. So with this, I think we haven't received any comment on this. Maqasid al-uqud is a very important aspect. Again, this is the definition that we added in the Sharia decision-making process standard first, and here it is being repeated. But again, the concept is that maqasid al-uqud should also be considered during the functions and operations of the Sharia board. Maqasid al-uqud, or the objectives of the contract, are the objectives for which the relevant contract is legislated as per Sharia. Explanation: the objective of the sale contract is to transfer ownership of the subject matter of the sale to the buyer against a consideration. The objective of Ijara contract is to transfer ownership of the usufruct of the lease assets against a consideration, and so on. If the sale contract, for example, implies retaining ownership of the subject of sale by the seller till the buyer settles the sale installments, then this shall negate the objective of the contract. Similarly, if the contract of Ijara implies that loss of subject matter of the lease will be upon the lessee on the absolute basis, then this shall negate the objectives of the Ijara contract. So this is a definition coming from Sharia decision making. Sister Zahra and Sister Majan, if you can take a note of it, that sale installments. I think we use installments with double L, and which is more aligned with the British spellings. So you need to check the language for the proof checking language, number one, and also check. I think in our we use consistently installments with double L. That you might need to correct here. And also you need to check if it is the same as per Sharia decision-making process standard as well. Both are to be finalized together, I believe, more or less. So it should be consistent, and it should be consistent with our practice.
Okay, well, noted.
Objectivity in the specific context of the standard is an independent and mental attitude from which SSB members should maintain in performing their responsibilities in line with the requirements of relevant AAOIFI governance standards. SSB members are not to subordinate their judgment on Sharia supervision matters to that of others. The principle of objectivity imposes obligations on SSB members to be fair, intellectually honest, and free of conflict of interest that is neutral. Sharia principles and rules definition is coming from earlier standards, and we have been discussing it time to time. Sharia board definition we discussed in earlier public hearings, and we discussed yesterday as well. Those charged with governance also is coming from the earlier standards, and it's originally coming from IASBA definition, which we covered already. Only for the benefit of the audience who have not attended earlier public hearings, those charged with governance is the term we use for board of directors, its committees, or equivalent, etc. Now, coming to this standard main crux, functions, roles, and responsibilities of an SSB. So first part is authority and accountability. So we are saying that SSB of an institution shall be assisted with the appropriate power and authority as may be necessary to perform its duties and responsibilities effectively. So this is first of the most important elements of empowerment, that power and authority should be there. SSB shall issue fatwas and rulings related to Sharia matter which shall be binding on the institution insofar as aligned with the hierarchy of Sharia principles and rules. So important point is that SSB has a power to issue fatwas and Sharia rulings. But can their Sharia rulings override the Sharia standards of AOIFI or the Sharia rulings of the Central Sharia Board? No. And that is the reason here we bring in the concept of the hierarchy of Sharia principles and rules, which we have discussed earlier many times in our public hearings, and it is already covered in multiple AOIFI standards, that the authorities of respective parties or respective, the power given to respective sources of Sharia that Sharia principles and rules should be according to that hierarchy only, which means that the Sharia Supervisory Board has the authority with this, but their views are binding related to Sharia matters unless against a Sharia rule or principle which is determined by a source which was above in the hierarchy, like the AOIFI Sharia standard or Central Sharia Board, or the regulator Sharia regulations, or the central bank or the Central Sharia Board rulings, etc. Responsibility for quality, accuracy, and soundness has to be there. So that is the responsibility part. And SSB and its members should not be involved in any manner with regard to the managerial decisions and operational responsibilities of the institution. This is one very important aspect. And I recall yesterday's one very important comment, which was with regard to some of the administrative power being used by the SSB. So I would just like to mention that we are very clear that any managerial decision or operational responsibility of the institution should not be in the hand of the SSB. Primary responsibility for supervision related to Sharia matters. So SSB shall supervise the institution's operations, transactions, and processes to ensure compliance with Sharia principles and rules, and accordingly following shall apply. All relevant documentation, etc., including all this contracts, agreements, promotional material, legal operational documents used in the business transactions of the institution must be approved by the SSB, either on a case-to-case basis, which is less common, and more on a standardized documentation and standardized process flow basis. All policies and procedure related to that shall also be reviewed by the SSB with regard to the Sharia compliance considerations. Then there must be a proper methodology to guide the Sharia decision-making process in line with AOIFI Sharia Standard number 29 and AOIFI Governance Standard on Sharia decision-making. And SSB shall take into account relevant business realities and practices and related risk, as well as consumer protection concerns in arriving at this decision. As a governance matter, it is very important that Sharia board should be considering the protection of the consumers and the counterparties and the investment account holders, and not only the interest of the investment of the Islamic financial institution. Then investment accounts related strategy and policy framework. We have developed a very comprehensive standard on this area, and we have requested that we have required here that SSB shall review this strategy framework and it should ensure its implementation, etc. as well. Particularly with regard to the profit and loss distribution to investment account holders and other participatory stakeholders must be done. The SSB shall review and approve the accounting treatment of products and services with regard to Sharia principles and rules, and should review the annual zakat calculation, etc. as well, on behalf of shareholders as well as investment account holders where applicable. SSB shall specify the disposal of earnings, that is the charity. So they should specify the means of disposal and should also verify the correct use of income for appropriate charitable purposes. I would like to mention that this standard and the review and report standard have some linkages. So some of the specific functions that have been provided here are covered in the SSB's report as well. I was just going to say that till now I have not received any questions, so it is going to be a boring session today. And I just received a comment, but that comment, okay, that comment is just a hello. So Brother Ahmed Al-Hayari has said hello, and Brother Ahmed, Assalamu alaikum and welcome. Thanks for being with us. We are looking forward towards your comments on the discussion today. So the functions that we have mentioned here are also covered in the report. So with regard to the investment accounts, with regard to the charity and disposal and its proper use, with regard to zakat, whatever important specific functions that we have identified here as specific responsibilities are also relevant for the purpose of reporting, and they are part of the reporting of Sharia Supervisory Board. Then it shall review the reports and observation of the Sharia compliance, internal Sharia audit, and external Sharia audit, and provide advice on such reports and observations in line with the requirements of relevant AAOIFI governance standards. Then it should provide the input to annual plan for the internal Sharia audit. So although internal Sharia audit as per AAOIFI is reporting to the Audit and Governance Committee, but it has a dotted line reporting with the Sharia, with the internal Sharia audit, with the Sharia board. It's not actually reporting, but it's the concept of submitting the report first to the Sharia board, and Sharia board will be reviewing that report. Similarly, the annual plan of the internal Sharia audit should also be reviewed by the Sharia board to provide its input. And the consent of SSB shall be obtained for appointment of the head of Sharia compliance department. This is covered in it is covered in our governance standard number 9. And SSB shall also be consulted on the appointment of the head of the internal Sharia audit department. This is, so first one is necessary approval, because there is a dual reporting line. Sharia compliance function has a dual reporting line. It has a dual reporting line to the management and to the Sharia board. So their approval is a must to the extent of Sharia compliance department. And with regard to the internal Sharia audit department, they should be consulted. And the main idea is that they should be consulted with regard to the person's capability and understanding with regard to Sharia. Further details are provided in the respective governance standard. Sister Marjan and Sister Zahra, if I can just request, if you can make in both of these situations in para 18, it will be good if we create a cross-reference to the requirement in the respective standards.
So,
Standard number 9 and 11. Then we have, okay, there is another comment coming in. Okay, today people are just saying salam to me. It is brother Dr. Idris Muhammad Idris. And walaikum assalam, dear brother, and thank you very much for being with us. Yesterday you made some very good comments, so looking forward towards your more comments on this area. Then SSB shall be consulted by management to evaluate and assess on an annual basis the performance of head of the Sharia compliance function and the head of internal Sharia audit function. So this is an additional responsibility that they should keep an eye on the performance of these functional heads, and their approval and their appraisal related to Sharia related performance should be conducted by the SSB. Sister Zahra and Marjan again may use just note, I think it was mentioned by somebody earlier that appraisal of the Sharia related performance is not very clear wording. So I think that we might need to clarify this wording, like, you know, what we mean by the appraisal of the Sharia related performance. I remember somebody mentioned it earlier, either in working group or somewhere else. So just keep it a note if you can't find that comment, but then just note it as my personal comment, that appraisal of the Sharia related performance need to be clarified. What do we mean by that? Then escalation protocol. Any Sharia non-compliance issue that has been identified, obviously it will be coming to the Sharia board for the final decision, and management will be advised by the Sharia board for the corrective action, remedial action, and future preventive measures. If the SSB has reason to believe that Sharia non-compliant activities are being carried out in a systematic manner within the institution, the SSB shall inform those charged with governance and suggest suitable measures to rectify the situation. So it means that SSB will be writing or communicating this thing officially to the board of directors that they need to resolve this issue of continuing Sharia non-compliant activities. And if these are not resolved, or if those charged with governance fail to effectively address the issue, the SSB shall inform the relevant RSAs and report such violations in the annual report. This is like, you know, the power given to Sharia board that since their views with regard to Sharia matters are binding, if their views are ignored and not implemented, then they should have a right to approach to the regulator and approach the right to the shareholders and the other stakeholders in form of their published annual Sharia report. It just Marjan and Sister Zahra, if you can just make a note of it, we just need to align the name of this annual Sharia compliance report. I think it's SSB's annual report. The name of the report, what is the official name of the report in the report standard? I think we need to align the name here. Okay.
Okay, madam.
Okay.
Operations of SSB. SSB must have a charter or terms of reference in line with the requirement of this standard and other governance standards. And there should be a proper scope documentation. The charter should normally have, like, the purpose and authorization, membership, the composition, chairman and secretary, their roles and responsibilities, terms and remuneration of SSB member, removal. Just to mention with regard to secretary, AOIFI has a view which has been clearly written in the governance standard number 9 that this should be a proper Sharia board secretariat. But if there is not a Sharia board secretariat, then in absence of the Sharia board secretariat, the Sharia compliance function should work as Sharia board secretariat as well. And in that situation, if there is no permanent secretary of the Sharia board, then in that situation, the head of Sharia compliance function will be functioning as the secretary of the Sharia board also. Then the term and remuneration of SSB members. Just one thing, Sister Zahra, please make a note of it. About remuneration, I think it should be part of the contract and not part of the charter. Just make a note of it for the working group. Working group may see my comment here. Okay. Then about removal and replacement and authority, responsibilities, meeting frequency, voting and decision, amendments to the charter and relationship with those charged with governance and senior management. There was a discussion in the board earlier that whether we should come up with a specimen charter. And since we wanted to keep a standard to a principle-based standard, so we decided not to come up with a specimen of the charter or terms of reference of the Sharia board. But we would love to have comments from you today or in writing with regard to this requirement. If you have any comment, please let us know. Brother Iltijani Ahmed has a comment. Assalamu alaikum, glad being with you, and it's highly informative. Thank you, Dr. Iltijani Ahmed. It's our pleasure that you are here with us, and thanks to you, and looking forward towards your upcoming comments, inshallah. Brother Mehdi Hassan, wa alaikum assalam, and very, very, very much thanks for your kind wishes. We have a comment from Brother Farid Karkabi. Congratulations on such a comprehensive governance package. In point number 21, the SLB needs to report incidents of non-compliance that are systematic matters, some raised in Sharia board's annual meeting for several years, like rate of return, capital protection, and reserve mechanism for urea and rates of wakala that never fail to meet the expected rate. Should we expect major transformations in the practice when these standards become effective or impact on interest of customers? Brother Farid, I would say that Rome was not built in one day. Islamic finance is working in very limited resources in terms of people, in terms of regulatory support, in terms of legal support, legal systems, regulation, the competitive market in the conventional, working as in the dual banking system. These are the challenges that are not easy to be resolved. So, Brother Farid, yes, we believe that every single word, every single provision that has been added in this whole package of governance standards is with an intention to improve the quality of Sharia compliance and improve the governance, and to improve the stakeholder, to safeguard the stakeholder benefits, including the aspects that you have touched upon here. So considering all of these things, brother, we believe that this is going to be improved. With regard to some of your very specific questions with regard to the rate of wakala and urea, etc., I think that we have come up with a very comprehensive standard on investment accounts, that is an exposure draft stage. Recently, we developed our accounting standards on that area as well, which are finalized. So I would suggest that if you can kindly have a look at our new accounting standards, which are finalized on, they include the standard on control on quasi-equity, including investment accounts, off-balance sheet investment accounts, and transfer of assets. So these are the 4 standards which we finalized in December 2023 on the accounting side. And we have issued the exposure draft in December 2023 or October 20, I think in the end of 2023 on the investment accounts. So that exposure draft that has been issued on investment accounts is actually very comprehensive, and it is adding value to whatever we have discussed here. So what I would suggest that if you can have a look at it, you will find some of the solutions in that standard, not in this standard, because this standard is about Sharia board. But that standard is about investment accounts and the specific functions to be done to keep the investment accounts, including even wakala, etc., in line with Sharia and safeguarding the interests of the stakeholders. Thank you very much, Brother Farid, for your very good comment and your kind comments and appreciation for us. It means a lot for us, and looking forward towards your further comments. With all these governance standards coming and our upcoming new Sharia standards coming, like particularly the Sukuk exposure draft that we have, I can assure you that the new Sharia standards of AOIFI, the new accounting and governance standards of AOIFI are all aimed towards improving the quality of Islamic finance practices, and we believe
There seemed to be connection issue.
because I think I got disconnected for a moment, and I don't know whether everybody was disconnected or only me.
Only you, brother.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly now? Is it clear? Voice is clear. Everything is clear. Picture and voice.
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Our apologies for this inconvenience. I believe I didn't miss a lot. So let me share the screen again. So we were on the Sharia board's meetings and about quorum, etc. And then we are coming to the agenda. That should be proper agenda with sufficient details, should be given with enough time for preparation, and all the information, the specific timelines for submission of agenda and related background shall be set by SSB in line with the relevant regulations, if any. But in any case, not less than 1 week prior to the meeting. But obviously, it has to be more than that, and we believe and we request the Sharia board members should allocate appropriate time for reading the documents. SSB shall commit to and specify reasonable maximum timeline after required information has been provided for any and all issues presented before it for a decision. This is very important, that Sharia boards can't keep the things open. So they should commit and specify reasonable timelines for themselves as well, in which they allocate good enough time to review the matter and approve the matter. The chairman and deputy chairman shall may be empowered to invite any relevant senior management personnel to attend the SSB meeting at the initiative of the SSB or management. But senior management personnel will not have an obvious right to be there. We need to be clear on this part, that it is not a mandatory right that they can be attending. But yes, obviously, most of the time their presence is useful. So it is better if they are available there. There is comment from Brother Luqman Abdullahi. Assalamu alaikum. I'm very interested, impressed with this lecture. I wish you the best. I joined from Nigeria. Thank you very much, Brother Luqman. And thank you for your kind comments. Allah bless you, and thanks for being with us. And we hope and look forward towards your valuable comments on the document. Those of you who cannot provide comments right now are still requested to provide written comments till the end of this month, inshallah. Dr. Munir Ahmed has a comment. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. In addition to Sharia non-compliance risk and reputation risk, I am of the view that SSB supervision will also include the guidance of other risks specific to Sharia compliant business, such as displaced commercial risk and equity investment risk, to be aligned the risk management techniques with Sharia principles. Dr. Munir, there are two aspects of your comment is well taken, but I would like to humbly submit, sir, that the displaced commercial risk and equity investment risk, etc., are business matters. They should not be within the domain of the Sharia board. Any risk reserve that are created against them is also a business domain. All these things should be done in line with the Sharia compliant manner. So even all the policies and procedure, if you see, we have discussed that earlier, that all policies and procedures should be reviewed by them, which include the risk management related policies and procedures. But if you ask me, and particularly with regard to displaced commercial risk and rate of return risk, that is part of the investment accounts related standards review requirements as well. So that will be reviewed. But just keep in mind that these are primarily the management's domain, and they should remain the management's domain. They should not go to the SSB's domain because it will jeopardize their independence. Although it is my understanding of this matter, but obviously we'll take your comment to the board and we'll see if they agree to any amendment here. Thank you very much, brother Dr. Munir Ahmed. Then we have the requirements with regard to the minutes, that they should be properly documented, and even the dissenting notes and difference of opinion, etc., should be properly documented. That minutes shall be signed by all the members who attended the meeting. This is a requirement that we have put in, that only chairman's signature is not good enough. The approval and signature by each of the SSB member who attended the meeting is important. Particularly because they must have a right of writing and getting noted their any dissents or their views on these matters. The secretary to the SSB shall be responsible for minutes, etc. Any difference of opinion among members shall be duly documented and referred to in the minutes. And approval, just one thing. Then 33 and 34, there is a bit of overlapping wording. Just have a look at it, Sister Zahra. Maybe we can slightly improve it, okay? And each SSB approval taken through circulation shall be part of the minutes of the next SSB meeting. So it is very important that whenever you take SSB minutes by resolution, by circulation, approval by resolution by circulation, that should be attached with the minutes of the next meeting. SSB must meet those charged with governance at least once in a year, preferably more than that, but at least once in a year, with the board, that is those charged with governance, and provide them with their observation, concerns, and suggestions. SSB shall ensure proper documentation of any opinion on the Sharia related issues and its basis of conclusion. So we are saying that only this is not enough. Yes, we have seen it, it is halal. No, it has to be a properly written opinion, and that properly written opinion should be properly supported with the basis of conclusion, and this should be maintained centrally for ready reference. And SSB shall at time make available all the Sharia rulings regarding products, services, etc. with so that these can be available on the website. The SSB shall define key elements to be evaluated by reviewing and approving a product. Such key elements shall be used in the minimum guidelines checklist by the Sharia compliance function while reviewing all new products and services before presenting the product service document to the SSB. The checklist shall include at a minimum key features of products, processes, structures, etc. Some requirements we have written here, which is the core principle only, but more detailed requirements in this respect are included in the exposure draft of governance standard on Sharia decision-making principles. And this is with this all detail of this, the input from the legal side should also be obtained. Again, for some of the things, I might be skipping, like not going in every, not going through every word or every paragraph. But I think that more important things I will still have to go through it, even if it takes time. So we discussed about basis of conclusion already, and about if there is a change or amendment of fatwa or revision of fatwa, there should be a proper specified process, and that specified process part should be in line with the Sharia standard number 29. And the SDM standard. I think we should create, Sister Zahra, we should create a link here that specified process should be in line with the Sharia decision-making standard and the Sharia standard on fatwa. Continuous professional development. So SSB shall be subject to a continuous professional development, which should be done by the management in consultation with the SSB itself. And it should be both in terms of update and improvement of Sharia knowledge, as well as the understanding of business, financial, accounting, economic, and legal developments. And RSAs are encouraged to oversee the training programs for SSB members. This is very important, that because without RSA support and making it mandatory, normally it is not being implemented in some countries. Only in those countries where the RSA is taking interest in it. Only those countries are there where the Sharia boards are getting a proper continuous professional development. The SSB shall conduct its own annual performance assessment, and we have put an appendix for the performance assessment template. But this is the individual and collective performance assessment. So there is no third person to come and evaluate the Sharia board. Rather, it is Sharia board itself to evaluate its own members. Like individually, they have to do a peer assessment, and SSB collectively is to be done. The SS institution may decide on a third-party assessment of SSB performance. In that situation, still institution will not be doing it. Only a third party can be doing it. That assessment is done on an objective, transparent way, etc. And that report shall be submitted to those charged with governance and to the respective RSA on an annual basis, unless the RSA does not require it. SSB should also have a routine coordination, working coordination and working relationship with the Central Sharia Board. So that all the practices in the respective jurisdiction are standardized and harmonized. Then maintaining independence of the Sharia board, we already have a standard number 5 that we touched upon. So its Sharia board shall be independent, objective, competent, and appropriately empowered to carry out its responsibilities, and necessary measures will be taken for that. And no individual or group of individuals shall be allowed to dominate the SSB decision making. A full stop is missing here, sister. I hope only in the presentation. Okay. Here we mean that individual or group of individual means that particularly we are talking about the chief executive and the those charged with governance or the management, senior management personnel. Maintaining SSB members shall be truly independent. They shall be able to exercise independent judgment, etc., including and they should be not having an undue influence or pressure, including time constraints. So they should be allowed reasonable time to review the things. Sharia board members should be responsibility towards all stakeholders. This is an important point, that responsibility is not only to the board or to the shareholders, but also to all stakeholders, which means that the SSB report should also be addressed to all stakeholders. And they should, one of the things that has been put into their responsibility is in para 53, that in addition to Sharia compliance, they should try to uphold fairness and equity for stakeholders. So one thing is Sharia compliant, that yes, it is Sharia compliant, but it is fair also. If there are two parties agreeing to a contract, that might be like, permissible because the contract is being done on the will of the people. But is it fair? The profit distribution, the treatment of stakeholders, all these things. Is it fair in line with Maqasid al-Sharia? This is something that has been added to the functional responsibilities of the Sharia board. Remuneration of Sharia board shall not be conditional or linked to their achieving results or institution's targets. So if institution performs well, SSB should not be getting a bonus. This is very important to keep the financial and commercial independence. And then obviously with regard to the direct transaction related transaction-related dependence, we have put some controls on the independence part for the Sharia board and their immediate members. And this includes the transactions, and it includes the holding as shareholders. Obviously, some of the things can be done within a limit, but then a disclosure of the conflict of interest needs to be made. There is one more thing, that Sharia board's members or their own companies or their own or their own close family should not be providing the Sharia consulting or Sharia audit services to the same institution. That is also a conflict of interest. Then there are some exclusions, like they can become a depositor and IEH based on normal course of business, which means that if they get a special rate, that cannot be considered as normal course of business. If they get the rate that is according to the same tier, that can be possible. And obviously, they should not be having any other relationship that can interfere or perceived to interfere, reasonably perceived to interfere with the exercise of their independent judgment. They should perform a self-assessment of their relationship with the institution as well, and they should resolve or report any issues if they are identified. Contingent fee and performance-based bonus should not be there. Acceptance of gifts and free services generally should not be there, but it should be there only in, like, outside of normal courtesies of social life. Nothing should be considered acceptable by SSB members. So it should not be like the medical companies reps who offer things to the doctors. I'm just getting on the lighter note because I feel everybody might be getting bored now. Today we are not having too many questions. So I'm just getting afraid maybe people started to sleep now. With regard to handling of conflict of interest situations, the first thing is the disclosure of the issue and then issue a review of the issue internally within the SSB and resolving it. And if there is a temporary conflict of interest or a duty to another party ascertained from participating from the relevant discussion, decision or action. So partial conflict on a single matter, obviously it can be resolved by not participating in the discussion or decision. But if the issue remains unresolved or it is part of a permanent nature, the SSB member with the issue of conflict shall resign, and the General Assembly of the institution shall be notified. Maintaining objectivity, there are fairness, intellectually honest, and free of conflict of interest, it should be there. Then, in respect of objectivity, there is an important aspect that they need to be. They have an honest belief in their work and avoid potential and actual situations that impair their ability to make objective and independent professional judgments. And there should be a satisfactory mechanism for annual check of SSB members for independence and conflict of interest. Confidentiality. So we know that with SSB members being involved with multiple institutions, they have to be very careful about the confidentiality issues, and any confidential or sensitive information should always be maintained as confidential. So we have put in some requirements with regard to that. One important thing is that where an SSB member has a dissenting opinion or fatwa given by SSB, he has the right to document the dissent as per policy, but shall not criticize such fatwa publicly or use it to inflict reputational damage on the institution or its SSB. This is very important, that since decisions are made by majority, so he should not be criticizing the final decision, even if he has written a dissenting note. This is very important to safeguard the reputation of the institution and the Islamic finance as a whole. Then, with regard to the integrity and ethical responsibility, and particularly in their decision making, considering maqasid al-Shari'ah, maqasid al-Uqud, etc., as well as the legal requirements and the ethical dimensions of their decision, because at times there are some decisions which might be acceptable as per Sharia generally, but since they are against the law, and since the law should also be considered by Sharia till the time it's not against Sharia, so in that situation, Sharia board should also be keeping an eye on the legal and ethical requirements. AAOIFI's code of ethics should be followed for this purpose in particular, and accountability is very important. And this is very important, I think, one of the most crucial points, that irrespective of any delegation or reliance on other members, every member shall remain individually responsible. So one member cannot say that I did not review the things in detail, and it was other members who reviewed it in detail. There is a Q&A question in the Q&A tab by Sheikh Ibrahim Asmani. Can one serve in more than one SSB? Sheikh Ibrahim, this quick answer is yes. We have no restriction put in this standard on this. This one, or the appointment and composition is standard. So there is no restriction in this revised exposure draft. For more than one, we never had a restriction, but there were some suggested numbers in the earlier exposure draft which have been removed in this one. Thank you very much for your comment. Transparency and disclosure. So we have put in some transparency and disclosure requirements with regard to these governance requirements, and there has to be a report which should be the transparent, and that is going to be subject of our next standard that we need to discuss. In respect of SSB's fatwas, pronouncements and resolution, there should be a proper transparency, which include that all the products which are offered and generally, and the general opinion for the past 12 months, etc., should be available on the website, and an archive of such records shall remain available for the preceding years. But the current one should be more prominently available on the website, and whatever you have should be available to your customers, and whatever has been in the past should also remain available. Connection has got disconnected 2 times. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Brother Amir.
Okay, thank you very much. There is some connectivity issue today, or even if I can change my system. Then there are disclosure requirements with regard to what are the governance systems and controls employed about the Sharia compliance and all these things. So this is part of the annual report that should be there. And with regard to there are some disclosure which are related to the Sharia Supervisory Board which are to be made. These include about the remuneration and about the material financing deposit and other conflict of interest situations as well. And this is include the disclosure and number of nature of Sharia compliance events, etc. and training and capacity building related disclosures are needed, and SSB meetings and the attendance record of the SSB meetings is also required. With that, we discussed yesterday, and that the proposed date of application of this standard is 1 July 2025. We intend to finalize it within this next quarter, that is the second quarter of 2024. So if these standards are finalized within next quarter of 2024, it means that we will have at least 1 year in implementation date. And since these standard and its earlier joint IRSGF document exposure draft they're out for nearly 2.5 to 3 years, I believe. So from that perspective, the industry, we believe, is generally geared for it. But if you believe that you need more discussion, more discussion or comments on this point about the date of application, please feel free to put your comments today or you provide comments in writing. With that, I think we haven't received enough, lot of questions today on this. So let me, okay. There is a question from Sheikh Ibrahim Asmani. Do SSB members have any role in the appointment of the Sharia auditor of the AAOIFI? They are advising some AAOIFIs consult SSB members. Brother Sheikh Ibrahim, actually, if you recall, I discussed it. It was a paragraph that we discussed, I think, number 18 today, in which says that for internal Sharia audit head, they should be consulted, but their consent is not mandatory. But they should be consulted, particularly with regard to the Sharia-related capability of that person. But for the head Sharia compliance head, because that person normally has to function as a Sharia board secretary also, so their consent is a must. Dr. Munir Ahmed has a point that disclosing remuneration may create some controversial points. Dr. Munir, can you clarify what controversial points? Because the remuneration of the key management personnel is disclosed. The remuneration of auditors is disclosed in particular. Particularly, auditors' remuneration is always disclosed, even if it is not material for identifying the independence and objectivity. So why this will create controversial points? And what is that controversial point that is in your mind? Please clarify it a bit more. If not today, then you can send your comment in writing. But we need to understand what type of controversial point can be created here. With that, I can note that we are at 5, that is 3:10 Bahrain time. which means we have nearly 20 minutes. And that 20 minutes might not be good enough for two standards, surely will not be good enough for two standards. We have two standards, one on Islamic finance subsidiaries and associates, and one on Sharia Supervisory Board review and report. I am afraid that if I open this review and report standard, it is a bit longer standard, although it is closely linked to today's discussion, but it's a bit longer standard and it may not be covered in 20-25 minutes. So with your permission, I'll share the subsidiaries and associates standard, and I'm sure that we'll be able to find some time shortly to hold a short public hearing on the review and report standard. Even in the meanwhile, if you want to provide any comments in writing, please feel free to provide comments on this. I think there are just one question. Somebody has put a question in the chat window, so the request is that please put it in the Q&A tab so that we can keep a record of it. Brother Munir Ahmad has a comment. Okay, he's clarifying that how it brings controversies. So when it comes to Sharia scholars, people start debating. Brother Munir, still this point is not clear. What is the debate? Debate is that they are paying too much, being paid too much, or debate is that they are not being paid enough, or debate is that they are being paid on an unequal basis. So just let me know. I think individual remuneration was preferred, but in the working group it was also discussed. So we will take your point and we'll see. But I think that minimum of the total cumulative remuneration was put was put in here. So I think we'll take your comment. But let me be honest, brother. Why people debate about it? Because people feel that they should be independent, and people feel that at times they are paid too much to not remain independent. You got my point? I think you might be understanding, brother Dr. Munir, what I'm saying. If people debate that Sheikh A is being paid X amount in B bank, why they are debating it? There are a lot of other disclosures about chief executive and board and others. Nobody talks about it. And some people talk about it. Okay, Mr. A is the highest paid CEO in a country who is from an Islamic bank. And then people debate that also, that because why Islamic bank is making more profit and giving more bonus to the CEO. So the debates can be there. But the point is, whenever there is a disclosure requirement for transparency, the purpose is to improve the level of transparency, and through transparency, trying to ensure that the market discipline is created and independence is created. Again, your view is very well respected, but please keep in mind that everything that is debated might have a positive impact of that debate as well. There is an anonymous attendee. Again, every time I request that please put your names. Jazakallah khair for the always informative session. Question: is there a conflict of interest or non-nepotism if you hire a family member of your organization, even though she is qualified for that position? The point is, qualified versus most suitable are two different things. So the person may be qualified, but is the person most suitable on merit? If the person is more suitable on merit, I think there is no harm in that. But again, in that situation, there has to be disclosure of conflict of interest in every important matter. And if the person is competent, but may not necessarily be most competent and more suitable for this one, then if you own the organization, you can hire him. I can hire my son in a personal company that I own, but I cannot hire my son in AAOIFI because AAOIFI is not owned by me. While I am a decision maker at AAOIFI, but I am not the owner of AAOIFI. AAOIFI is owned by the whole of the industry in form of a waqf. I cannot do any injustice here. The same applies to banks and others where different people's money is involved. and different shareholders and other stakeholders' money is involved. So you need to do justice with that money. So in this perspective, it is very, very crucial that if you really believe that this person who is your son is the most competent for this job, you can have him on board, but then you should disclose this everywhere for the avoidance of conflict of interest. But for me, only being qualified for the job is not the best answer. The person has to be the most suitable candidate out of available candidates based on a proper process. Comment from Deep Umar Khalif. How responsive is the Islamic finance industry to innovation in accordance with Islamic law, and are there any future regulatory changes? It's a very, generalized question. So I'm sorry, I may not be able to address it completely. But in a nutshell, I believe the innovation process is continuously going on, and main regulatory changes are coming in form of standards from the standard setting bodies. And obviously, some countries are coming up with the new regulations. But I think AAOIFI and IFSB have been working hard on coming up with new standards in the last few years. Okay, this anonymous attendee is Sister Amina Bajabir. So, welcome, sister. Is there conflict of interest? Sorry, this I already answered to you. Thank you very much for being with us. Mufti Khwaja Nurul Hassan has a point. Assalamu alaikum, brother. I think that the remuneration point that people want, that SP may not be highly paid, so any influence reward doubt may not be created. That is the point. So if you believe, you being a Sharia scholar yourself, you believe that people question it because they feel that a person being paid too much will be impairing his objectivity and independence. This is the question. And this is where the transparency comes. And this is where even different banks, for this thing, eventually you need to have a objectivity or transparency on one hand, and market discipline also. Transparency and disclosure ensures market discipline also. This is also very important, that if one bank pays too much higher as compared to other banks, there might be independence issues. To be honest, we need to think of it. And again, we are not against any person or persons. The point is simple. We want to have the industry in a better way. For that, it is important that these matters that can have an impairment of objectivity and independence should be subject to transparency requirements. Thank you very much, Brother Mufti Khwaja Nurul Hassan. Sheikh Ibrahim Asmani again has a point. In my country, some people feel that when SSB members are paid by the IFI, they advise their independence is compromised. What do you say? I think we discussed it earlier as well, that again, only payment is not the factor for impairing objectivity. It is payment. If I am paid according to market, my objectivity will never be impaired. But if you pay me more than market, my objectivity will be impaired, because if I leave you, where I will go? Nobody is going to pay me equivalent, which means my objectivity may be impaired. But it does not mean that if a person who is very senior, very knowledgeable, and his contribution is adding great value to the institution, and this person's stature is actually adding a goodwill to the institution, then why not he should be paid? But if he's being paid, what is the harm in keeping a disclosure of it? Both angles can be correct, brother. But one thing is clear. If you ask me, Sharia scholars should be very well paid, very appropriately paid, as very high qualified professionals. No doubt about it. We highly recommend that they should be. Even if they are paid less, it impacts their objectivity also. If their position is too low, that impacts their objectivity also. So considering these factors, I believe, and I would like to submit, that it is very important that we try to keep the things, how would I put it, that we try to keep things transparent. Even if not by name, but the appropriate disclosure of remuneration, etc., would still be necessary. Brother Mufti Khwaja Nurul Hassan has a point. Some guidance may be given that SB members' grades should be equivalent to executive management. Otherwise, people does not pay as such respect and regards as people respect the grades as well. Brother Khwaja, I think exactly the same thing I said. And this is one thing that we said in the definition. Brother Khwaja, just let's be clear. You are a person that we are asking to be appointed by the shareholders. We are giving you a stature equivalent to board of directors. We are saying that you are not reporting to the board of directors. Obviously, I believe there should be no grades for no grades for to the Sharia board members like employees. They should not be subject to employee grades. That is, for me, that is maybe demeaning for them, except for in some countries where we have an executive member or a resident member. That a resident member or executive member is not in line with the AAOIFI practice. But that obviously can be according to the senior management cadre. That is understood. But we believe that Sharia board should not be having even an executive member. And we believe that Sharia board, every member should not be subject to the grades like management. They are above them. You cannot say that board of directors members should be given a grade equal to executive management. No, they are above them. The same applies here, that Sharia board is above them. So they should not be given the grades equal to executive management, but yes, they should be given a stature above executive management. And that is something that we need to keep in mind, that we are trying to do through the appointment authority, as we discussed yesterday, to be the General Assembly of the shareholders. And we said that this reporting line, they don't have a reporting line to the board of directors. For administrative matters, they can consult and coordinate with the board of directors, but they are not reporting to the CEO. They are not reporting to the board of directors. They are equal in stature to board of directors, and they are above the senior management. So for us, this executive cadre thing would not be appropriate. Rather, they should be paid more or less the way the board of directors are paid. But at times, board of directors are not paid this way because their time involvement is less. So at times, even they are to be paid more than board of directors. Brother Muhammad Ayub has a comment, Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam, regarding remuneration of the SLP members. What if the regulator maintains a list of potential members along with their honorarium, and the banks might be choosing any scholars and paying accordingly? First part agreed, sir, that according to the fit and proper criteria that we have put in the list, the regulator may make a list of scholars within the country who meet the fit and proper criteria. But if you ask me that a remuneration should not be put in front of their names, because I think this will be again a bit demeaning to them. It should be according to according to the negotiation and according to the respect. So, but thank you very much, Ayub. I think your comment is good. The first part I fully agree. Second part, I believe a bit at times it might be a bit demeaning for them. But yes, some countries can do it. It depends on their local culture. And some cultures it might be expected, but in other cultures, no good scholar would like to put his name on this list. So from that perspective, having a list of scholars who meet the fit and proper criteria as defined by AAOIFI would be a good idea, and we feel that it is a good approach. Which means that you don't need to go for the approval from the regulator again, because these people are already approved. Brother Mufti Khwaja Nurul Hassan has a comment, agreed appointment by shareholders, but in some countries like in Pakistan, the SB members are lower grades and people don't respect them, especially, and as you are aware, the unique members concept in Pakistan. Sir, I agree, this unique member concept and this RSBM concept, both are unique to Pakistan. This is an experiment done by Pakistan regulator. We highly respect that, and we believe that in some jurisdictions that might be helpful. But as per AAOIFI standard exposure draft that we have discussed yesterday and today, I would like to mention that we have no concept of RSBM, that is resident Sharia board member or an executive member who is part of the management. So this is part one. Part two, we believe that this unique member is not a bad idea. If you ask me, unique member is a good idea to ensure more sort of like the rotation and number of seats issues. So again, we tried to bring in a number of seats and rotation requirement, which was having different views from the market. So we have put it on hold. But our current standard says that there should be appropriate rotation and at least one member should be rotated every term. So this means that some rotation requirement should be there, and having a unique member and having other members rotated and having a number of seat requirement that you have in Pakistan, these are all good practices. I can tell you that a lot of advanced regulators have already put in this requirement of number of seats. It's not about AOIFI putting it or not putting it in the list, in the standard, but the regulators have already started bringing in this one, particularly Pakistan, Malaysia, Saudi, I think UAE, some other countries, they all have this requirement. I think Oman, they have this requirement of number of seats already in place. So some others, I've just mentioned some quick names coming to my mind, but I believe that a lot of regulators having good experience in Islamic finance have already gone for the rotation requirement and the number of seats requirement. So, but this unique member idea is also related to rotation, because you rotate some people and you keep one person unique, which means that every bank will have one unique member, which means it will become it is taking you towards the number of seat and rotation requirements. So I think it's not a bad idea. But it's every regulator may come up with their own ideas with regard to that. With RSBM idea, I can tell you AOIFI does not agree. AOIFI believes that no single member of the Sharia board should be part of the executive team. This is because it will impair the independence. So this is our submission. They can have a secretary sitting in the team, because there can be a secretariat. The head of Sharia compliance department can also be a very senior scholar or mufti, and he can be coordinating between the Sharia board and all other functions. But having a member being a voting member, being in the Sharia board and being with the management as a resident member or executive member, this is not supported by AOIFI. Dr. Munir Ahmad has another comment. Maybe consider adding the training of Sharia compliance to Sharia compliance function at TCWG under the role of SSB members. No, I think, Brother Munir, you cannot ask them to do this training by themselves. But what you can ask is to ask them to be involved in doing a review of the capacity building plan for these departments, which is included. I believe it is included in this standard as well as the framework standard, both. I personally agree with your comment, Sisters Marjan, Sister Zahra. Just make a note of Brother Dr. Munir's comment with regard to SSB's involvement, but not SSB doing the training themselves, but making sure that a proper capacity building plan and training plan is available for these functions, those charged with governance and Sharia compliance function. So from that perspective, it is very important that we make sure that this is already covered. My understanding, it is covered. You just need to find the references in this standard and the framework standard. But if you are unable to find the reference, in that situation, we'll take this comment to the working group and we'll add this part. But not, Brother Munir, my humble submission, Sharia board members, you cannot require them to do this training. Rather, you just want them to be involved in making sure that a proper training mechanism and plan is there. Okay, so we took nearly 15-18 minutes in answering some of the quick questions that were there. So the time for today is already over, and I know that is prayer time in multiple countries as well. So this is becoming long. And even earlier I said that my team might not be very happy on that. We are unable to complete these public hearing sessions, and but still I believe that it is good that a very productive and interactive session is held. Now in that situation, remaining two standards will be held in another public hearing. I think we need to plan that one. We'll see towards the end of Ramadan, it might be very difficult for people to join, but we'll see. Either we do it towards the end of Ramadan or we do it after Ramadan. So there will be one standard, one standard of the Sharia board side, that is the review and report, and there will be one on the Islamic finance subsidiaries and associates. Subsidiaries and associates is a smaller standard, so we can still try to do it. So maybe we can allocate 1.5 to 2 hours to these two standards together. I hope that will be good enough time to complete this whole set of public hearings. And I would like to thank you all and our partners for being here with us. And with that, I would like to hand over back to Sister Zahra to conclude the session.
Thank you very much, Brother Umar, and thank you for our partners. Thank you for all the attendees for their valuable feedback. Please check our website and social media platforms for details about the upcoming public hearing and events. And if you have extra or additional comments, please feel free to share with us on governance@aoifi.com. This is it from my side. Fi amanillah.
Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.